Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna-bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Pranam to each one of you, and greetings from Godrum, not Godrum from Bengal, but Godrum from Buenos Aires, Argentina. We had a little space here, an island called Godrum, like the Godrum Dweep of Gorlila. And I'm spending a few days here visiting dear friends while I'm in Argentina for a few more weeks. And yeah, the island is not precisely famous for its Wi-Fi quality, but hopefully good enough for us to to remain in touch today. So I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to see the faces of each one of you. I'm glad that we can again gather one more time around the sacred fire of sacred sharing and feel the warmth of each other's presence and blessed influence so we can continue to walk the sacred path. So, as usual, you are invited to bring to the table anything. Whether you brought as Krishna says, right? Leaf, fruit, water, flower, whatever you want to bring to the table, as long as it comes from a place from the dignity of love, we welcome anything. It can be a full preparation, it can be a spice, it can be a banana peel. Krishna confirms that in his famous story. As long as it comes from an authentic landscape, that will be welcome. That will be honored. So you are invited to raise your digital hand if you have any contribution to make today, or if not, you can still make your contribution by silent witnessing, holding space. We all need that, please. Each one of us. That's our commitment to the meeting, to the gathering. So far we have three. I'm seeing three raised digital hands. And of course, if you have any other, feel free to do so now or later. The sooner the better for me to have an idea of the scope of raised hands that I have to deal with today. But if something comes on the way, that's also welcome. I will try to honor that as well. So the first one comes from Wales. And that's Sam Dennis, as he's called today on Zoom. So our dear Sam is invited to unmute himself and voice your offering. Welcome.
I've been reading Srila Swami's book, Poetry of a Saint, and in chapter 3,
Which book, sorry?
Srila Swami's book, Poetry of a Saint.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And in the third chapter, there's a section entitled "Love That Is Beyond All Law," and he quotes a verse from Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 11, verse 32. And he connects it to, he goes on to say after that the Lord says, I've already ordered in the scriptures, do this, and you shall be promoted. If by crossing my previous orders on a particular level, one follows my footsteps, then he's sure to be promoted. And I wasn't sure what Srila Swami was meant. But I found another verse that Krishna says, the rules of the scriptures come from my direction, my order. But if anyone breaks those rules to satisfy me, he should be considered a better devotee. And he connects that kind of mood with the gopis who are willing to risk everything, essentially. So I was just wondering, because that's such a high level of service, high level of devotional love and realization. But how could that play out in our own lives? How could we? I don't want to ask like loads of questions. How could it play out in our own lives? Yeah, like how could we embody that? Because obviously, just speaking for myself, I'm not there yet. but how to cultivate that meditation, that mood. Lots of questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I was moving while you're making the question just to, here we have it as well. Portrait of a saint. I have part of my library remained here in God room, so I have it in front of me. You cannot see it's behind the camera, but that's one of those. And interestingly enough, Sam, you are asking this question and referring to this particular section or sections from the Bhagavad and different verses somehow connected to that. And today in the morning I was going through the penultimate chapter of my next book, and basically I'm quoting the exact same section that you just referred to now. So that's a beautiful God incidence, as I like to call it, synchronicity. So one of the verses, as you rightfully so referred to, is Bhagavatam 11, Canto 11, Chapter 11, verse 32, where Krishna is speaking to Uddhava, speaking about how, it's kind of a parallel to the conclusion of the Bhagavad-gītā, right? Sarva dharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tam sarvapappi vimokshayishyami masuchaha. No, it's very similar. No? In this verse of the Bhagavatam, Krishna is saying basically dharmam santyaja ja sarvam, which basically means the same, like someone rejecting all dharma or taking all risk. That's the implication. For my sake, I take them special I hold them in a very special embrace in my heart. Krishna says. Again, he loves them. He loves everyone unconditionally, as we always say. But as he says in the Bhagavad-gītā 4:11, he reciprocates accordingly as well. Even if we do not reciprocate or initiate anything at all, already there is unconditional love. But when we choose to reciprocate, he will reciprocate accordingly himself. So if someone is willing to take all risk or some degree of risk for his sake, for his love, that he will appreciate especially. So again, this ultimately points, as you referred to the gopis of Vrindavan, not to make an elitistic claim to say only them are the better, are the best, and Krishna loves them more than any other person, because again, we very easily fall into this dualistic, hierarchical competition, like labeling of eternal associates. But we will say that the love of the gopis is characterized by high risk. I will recommend, hopefully not sounding too self-referential, but some months ago I wrote a few articles, maybe you read them, but they are all revolving around the love of the gopis, and particularly the paramount love of the gopis called Parakiya Bhav. And it's a 3-part series. Maybe Bhaktarasa can find the link and share it in the chat. But it's something like Parakiya Bhav, the hidden cost of sacred paramount love. So there I try to speak about this most esoteric thing, which is paramount love of the gopis, in ways that we can relate where we are now, in terms of, so we don't just remain with the overtly romanticized picture of paramount love in Vrindavan, just because it's the highest, just because everyone is the highest, I'm going for it, but I actually don't understand how to enter there from where I am now. So we try to analyze the fearlessness, for example, that the gopis are willing to embrace in their daily meetings, their daily rendezvous with Krishna, right? With all risk implied, right? I mean, especially at midday. That's why for us, that's something that came once while writing the article, is like in our tradition. Many times we hear that Radha Kunda is the highest of all highest places, no? Even in the Rupa Goswami and Upadeshamrita will make some hierarchy connection to Vaikuntha, and Dwarka and Mathura, and then Vrindavan, and even inside Vrindavan he will speak about different places, and finally Radhakund. But sometimes we may, I've asked about this, but why is the highest place? Why, how can you determine the actual reason for Radha in the highest place? I will say, oh, because there Krishna performs romantic pastime. Yeah, but he does that in Govardhan and in so many other places. So what's the uniqueness of that place? And what came by hearing something from Srila Siddhar Maharaj some time ago was that in Radhakund, in the eternal day of Radha and Krishna, they unite on the Madhyan Lila and the midday pastimes in full day, right? Full sunlight, full risk, because they meet every night for Rasa Lila, but at that time everyone is sleeping in Vrindavan. So that's comparatively less risky because everyone is sleeping and you just like sleep into the night and meet Krishna. But at midday, the whole village is awake and doing their things, and still they go to meet with Krishna Radha. So full risk. The probability of risk is even higher. So Srila Siddhar says something to that effect. The higher the probability of risk, the deepest what's going on there, the service disposition. So again, we cannot, as you say, force ourselves to be there. I mean, we cannot be there. We can just start to get closer to that place. So make it personal, make it radically personal. Ask yourself. I was the other day reading one book about St. Francis of Assisi and his life, and at the end the author very nicely made a very personalized invitation after going through basically all the life and leelas, so to say, of St. Francis, and then make it all personal. Okay, St. Francis went through this. How have you gone through this in your own way, and what can you learn from that? And trying not to, again, make yourself equal to that person, but relatable enough. So these verses that you are mentioning, again, are speaking about a devotee's willingness to transgress everything for the sake of love. In other words, the point made is love is worth of all transgression, so to say, at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the price to pay for real ultimate love is to leave behind all the things that get in the way of love. And the more passionate becomes your love, some things may not, I mean, it's not that we are rejecting stuff, actually we are integrating them, but in the context of the lila, things appear as obstacles, right? Again, the gopis are, quote unquote, just to make it clear, they are rejecting family, rejecting society, rejecting rules, civilized rules, and they are going against proper lady behavior. Again, that doesn't mean now you do the same thing and leave your family behind and everyone behind for Krishna, because sometimes that has been the reading. But the actual reading, not to read it literally, means is to reject all those things as, how to say, as enough on themselves, being units that define who we are, and allowing ourselves to be more and more defined by love. And in certain cases, some of those things, hypothetically speaking, family, society, whatever gets in the way of love, again, we can choose whatever we want, but in the context we are talking is to be able to leave that behind and pursue love always. That's kind of I wouldn't say it's a sectarian teaching, because love is the most universal thing. So again, then it's the meditation of how we own that, how we make that personal, how love is inviting me in this moment of life, not necessarily to reject something. Two things, right? Maybe I'm rejecting things that I don't need to reject. I just need to integrate them in my love journey, in my abhisar. And sometimes there may be actual things that get in the way of love that I may need to leave behind. And things may be ways of thinking even, may not be even a person or a relationship or a situation. Sometimes it may be. I mean, rejecting it. I mean, if I'm rejecting something for the sake of love, in one sense, I shouldn't be rejecting that, because love is all encompassing and love all accommodating, right? So I'm just going for love. I'm putting that in its right place, and that may be just taking a loving distance from that thing, not rejecting even. So we are invited to reflect, how this present chapter of my journey, what do I have to release? What older version of myself, what particular belief, thinking pattern, whatever, way of thinking and acting is no longer keeping the pace of love, is no longer up to date in relation to love's latest update, latest knocking on my door. And again, that feels like risk, right? Because you are leaving something behind, you're releasing something, and sometimes there may be this feeling of what will be on the other side if I'm releasing this. So it's an invitation to trust the call of love. As you were talking some time ago, we cannot speak of trust in the midst of absolute certainty. No? If every single movement I'm making is accompanied by absolute certainty of a certain result, there is no actual trust. And trusting implies some degree of unknowingness, uncertainty. Call it risk, right? It feels like risk. Ultimately, there is no risk, right? If you fully love, there is no risk, there is no loss, there is no diminution, but it could feel like it. And despite it feels like it, you dare to advance toward love. And that's kind of what the gopis example embody as a principle that can be applicable on different degrees. No? In one sense, I was reading something the other day, in one sense, personality like gopis have nothing to lose, and in one sense, nothing to gain, which is a very interesting way of putting it. In the sense of nothing to lose, it may seem they have nothing to lose, all to lose, but they have nothing to lose because they have given themselves totally to love. So that's the ultimate warranty. And they have nothing to gain in the sense that they are not after a certain gain for themselves. No? In that sense, they have nothing to gain. They are not, okay, I will go after Krishna to gain this. They are not thinking in those terms. I will do this so something else comes to me. As we were talking the other day, even in Nishkama Karma Yoga, we are recommended to, we are invited to perform our dharma and see that the performance of dharma is the fruit itself. Not that I'm doing a dharma for the sake of a fruit. So what to speak of bhakti? Again, bhakti is for the sake of bhakti. I'm not doing this for anything else but what I'm doing. So, and of course, again, Krishna will say, I'm especially captured by such people. Of course, makes sense. He has to reciprocate accordingly. He wants to. He cannot but. And they are very willing to take all risks for his pleasure. So, again, we cannot force that in a superficial way, but we can ask ourselves, in which sense I'm being too calculative? In which sense I'm grasping onto certainty more than what I need? In which sense I'm not exploring enough, allowing myself to go into the liminal room? All that has to do with following the footsteps of these devotees, of these great personalities, in a way that is sustainable for us. So, yeah, fearlessness. Again, that's a very important word. Abhayatva. What's holding me from taking the next step? A simple question like what I am still afraid of. And if you ask that question sincerely, probably a long list will come in response to that question. And it's fine, right? we shouldn't be fearful of asking what I'm afraid of. Sometimes we are, and therefore we don't have a question and we don't have an answer to the question, and those remain being unnamed. So they are keep freezing us from this conscious mind. We don't even see them, but they are, conquering everything invisibly. So once we dare to ask the question, what I'm still afraid of, what's getting in the way of my fearlessness, again, with toxic shame or guilt, but with courage. It requires courage to ask yourself what I'm still afraid of, and then name it, bring it from this unconscious to the conscious, name it, then you can deal with it. But first you have to name it, to articulate it, then it starts to exist for you. We gain awareness of that, and then we can consciously work on those things that still sometimes paralyze us. So this has all to do with following the footsteps the gopis all say. Yeah. And again, it sounds very basic and simple, but we have to do it. No, we learn things by doing them, right? We don't learn things just by listening to the lesson, receiving the theoretical information about things. Then you need to do it, do the thing, to embrace the practice, so to say. We can listen so many times about how to ride a bicycle, but you need to ride a bicycle. Like if someone asks me how to learn to ride a bicycle, well, you need to ride a bicycle. But I don't know how to ride a bicycle. Yeah, of course, you will never know how to ride a bicycle before you ride the bicycle. But if I don't know how to ride a bicycle, I will fall. Yeah, of course. That's how you learn to ride a bicycle. Of course, you may gain some preliminary information. What's a bicycle? It has two wheels, and you sit on the seat, and you put your hands here. Something, but at one point is do it. Right? And the learning, the experience, the internalizing of the lesson happens in the arena of life. If not, we just become passive spectators or complacent consumers of the product. But again, this is the opposite of what we were talking about here. Risk-taking, fearless, bold, reckless love, as our highest ideals are showing. So it's a gradual process. But yeah, let's keep it radically personal, and let's translate all these ideals into our life. And it takes time to sit with those ideas, to craft questions out of those ideas. Every idea that we hear and touches us probably should be transformed into a question personally addressed to ourselves, right? Every concept, idea we hear and say, wow, incredible, oh, so inspiring. Then immediately, probably you need to craft a question that addresses your case specifically, and then you can make it yours, internalize it, then do it, live it, and it becomes realization. We don't just want to become fascinated with concepts. I mean, that's something, but that's just the threshold of the ocean of experience we're invited to dive in and swim into forever, right? So yeah, questions. Sometimes the important thing is not so much getting answers, but getting proper questions. And staying with those proper questions as long as they require to bloom into the answer we need to hear. No, that's it. Many times we hear the concept and we think, oh, that's the answer I need to hear. But probably not. That's the beginning of the answer. It's part of the answer. We hear a fascinating idea, touching notion. Oh, wow. But then that notion, that concept needs to become a question that we need to craft out of. Then we need to sit with the question. We need to hear enough the question and hear enough the answer. Then we need to live into the answer. Now the question becomes the lived answer eventually. And then we make the full circle. Then we can move to the next concept and the next question and the next bike riding, learning adventure. that's what came today, Sam. What do you think? I'm not hearing you. Well, I have to maximize your screen. Stay there one moment. My phone is malfunctioning. Thank you, Maharaj. Okay. Okay. I take your thank you as there was something useful there. Well, we can go for a few minutes to break at rooms as we always do. You can churn along with each other what has been churning your own heart and what does fearlessness and risk-taking look like, and sitting with questions and crafting questions and imbibing this mood of the gopis in a realistic way, in spirit, where you are now. So Bhakti Rasa will invite us there, and see you back in a few minutes.
That seemed really short.
Well, welcome back. Yeah, it's always short. That's why we need eternity to keep this sustainable. We have it. This is a glimpse, always a glimpse. We are dealing with the infinite here. It's always too short, right? The finger's too short. So we'll continue, hoping you had some warm, smooth, spacious time together. We'll continue calling those who dare to raise their hand. That's risk-taking for sure and fearless, so all glories to you. And the next one who raised their hand originally and following the original order was Trivikram Prabhu from New Zealand. So we invite him to show up.
I am trying to show up here. Just scrolling so I can see you, Maharaj. Oh, there we go.
Here we are.
Here you are. Okay, I've actually jotted something down because at this time of the morning, which it is here, my brain's kind of usually in the fog. It's usually foggy up here in the hills, and so no exception is my brain. So I'm just jotted down some ideas. It kind of probably relates a little bit to the initial question. And it's kind of, as I coined, an AFAF question, asking for a friend question, which is a bit of a telltale. But anyway, if a person clearly displays addiction issues, including deception, denial, and long-standing historical abuse and bypassing tendencies, can an explanation of God's unconditional love be effectively employed to rectify that person or steer that person on the right path, or as a provisional explanation that is arguably more nuanced and perhaps even black and white, even fear-based, more appropriate in that immature stage? Yeah. Or is it, and can it sometimes be counterproductive to achieving a favorable outcome if we approach it incorrectly?
Yeah. Well, I will start saying, of course, again, as usual, my disclaimer that we are talking about very abstractly here, because we are not dealing with any specific case, at least that I know. Of course, maybe in your question there may be a specific case, but since I'm just talking very generically, I will just speak. I cannot. I mean, the question somehow asks for scientific, but the case is generic, so it kind of doesn't match one with the other, in the sense that not everyone needs this thing, right? We can say very generically, all you need is love, yeah, but in the context of that, we may need so many other things. So if we are, first of all, we are saying, okay, someone is displaying symptoms of addiction. Let's begin just by owning that most of us have some of that to some degree or another, right? Because sometimes we will say, we generally throw addiction out to some other group, it's a marginalized circle, or I conceive addiction in the lowest possible way, so we don't have to be labeled as such in our more lofty addictions. But somehow we're all addicted to something, right? Even if you tell me, okay, but Swami, I'm not taking any substances. Okay, but that's not the end of addiction, right? You can be addicted to so many things. You can be addicted to anything. Basically, literally. You can be addicted to religion in an unhealthy way. You can be addicted to, what to speak of social media, of course. You can be addicted to your thinking patterns. I remember Father Richard Roll, he will say that to me once, right? Like, if there's one universal addiction we are sure is, we are all addicted to the way we think. We are all addicted to seeing ourselves in a certain way, to seeing others in a certain way, to seeing everything in a certain way. And we are all trying to recover, right? In the recovering department in some way or another. So I think it's healthy to begin from that humbling point, so we don't create this binary, right? The addicted ones and me, the non-addicted one. No, so no universe. As sometimes I like to say, we sometimes are very actionistic in playing out the implications of things. So we say, oh, the four regulative principle is no meat eating. No, it's not meat eating. It's not that. It's so much more. And probably when you play out the implications of that, we realize I'm not doing that as much as I could do. Again, not to feel bad, just to realize I may not be as kind as I can. And that's in one way not following that principle fully. To normalize probably that degree of failure, if you will. So in the same way, addiction is not just I'm about to die from a fentanyl overdose, and that's addiction, right? No, that's one of many. So I think it's important to normalize that and to work on that, of course, after normalizing that we are all struggling with that. We have all internalized ways of seeing ourselves and others that are quite toxic and destructive, all symptoms of addiction. And then go into, okay, some third person account, someone else that you can somehow assess that they are going through some of that, or much of that. Will help to them to speak about God's unconditional love? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Again, I don't know who is that person. I don't know in which situation they're in. For some people, that may help. For some people, that may not help at this precise moment. I'm not saying speaking of God's unconditional love is not helping at any moment. No, of course it's helpful at some moment, but at some other moment, some people, I don't know, I mean, just need therapy, just need treatment, need to be put into a clinic, depending which case and which addiction. Again, I'm just talking too generically. And eventually they may be more willing to listen to anything, because in the beginning they may have their whole system and biology to trigger to pay attention to anything because of what the addiction is creating. Again, I'm not just talking about substances here. We can be pretty intoxicated with emotions and ways of thinking, and we cannot see or listen to anything else. So every case has to receive a very personalized following. And even, as I like to say many times, it's not so much about talking to other people about God's unconditional love. I'm not saying that won't work. I'm writing a whole book about it, so I clearly value speaking about it. But the main thing is to embody that, basically, right? To embody that, to give the other person an undeniable first-hand experience of what it means to be unconditionally accepted and loved and seen. So, and we can talk about it as long as we are trying to embody that to others, because if not, the talk may be an escape from the walk to the talk, right? So at the end of the day, again, we're talking about addiction in very generic way, and I'm seeing that Manjulali Manjari is mentioning something in connection to addiction being the opposite of connection. So again, what can bring connection then, right? Whatever may be the addiction. And again, I don't want to sound here like I'm making a prescription, a universal prescription for every single case, do this and it will work. But in principle, we know somehow or other addiction isolates, addiction, blocks the awareness of interconnectedness. So we have to bring that into the fold, and how to bring that to every particular case may take a different form. But whatever it takes, hopefully we can bring that, having done our homework first. Again, because if addiction is about isolation and disconnectedness and fractures perceived sense of being, where am I at all with all that? And how I'm, as we talked before, how I'm working on that myself. As much as I'm working on that, I will be able to convey a glimpse or more of that to other person. Because if not, I can just tell him or her or they, God loves you, and it's not reaching home because it has not reached home here first. So yeah, it can be useful, and it has. I mean, I can remember many cases and situations where I've talked to people about trying to bring the tension of you are being loved by God, you are being accepted, and that was very helpful for them. But some other cases where that was helpful, but that was not enough. And we shouldn't say, oh, what? That's not enough. That should be enough. You're ungrateful. No. We may just not be able to fully relate to that, because again, some people, if they have not had any previous point of reference of what it means to be unconditionally accepted, if I talk about it, that means nothing to that person. Because it's like talking Chinese. Imagine you never learned Chinese, and I come to you, I tell you in Chinese, God loves you unconditionally. You don't get anything there, probably. No. So first, I need to learn language. I need to imbue those words with a life well lived, coherently aligned with those words, and then we are beginning to talk seriously about something, right? Yeah, some thoughts, some ideas in general. I don't know if, again, I'm just throwing darts in a very generic way because we are not having any specific case in mind. So that's as best as I can do today. I don't know if that helps, Ravikram Prabhu.
Yes, that was very good. Thank you, Maharaj. Obviously a topic like this is, it's a sensitive topic in many cases. So therefore a generic is probably better in this sort of arena anyway. But the general principle of connection and how to actually get that idea through to others that you're loved. That'll vary, obviously, according to the person's experience of connection or love and historically. So, I get all that nicely. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And of course, in terms of implementing that in practice, again, most of us may need to do it step by step, in a very little way, no? Like this famous book called Atomic Habits or something. They speak about how you cannot try to change something immediately, like a quantum leap, but if you do small adjustments on the day to day, that can really change your perspective more and more and more, right? So that's how it may begin, no? Like a gradual recalculation, an adjustment, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, according to what that person needs, to what that person can, to what we can if we are trying to help someone. it's a gradual exposure to again, like what Manjulali Manjari was saying, if addiction is to be defined by something that alienates, we could even define addiction as habits, alienating habits, basically. Let's put it that way. No? You develop a habit of doing something that instead of connecting you, it's alienating you. So alienating habit is an addiction. But you develop a habit, before it becomes a habit, you start to do it one time, two times, like you receive a samskar, an impression, then you replicate that, and if that starts to acquire a momentum of like a pattern, then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes your whole personality and identity, and that's who you are, so to say. So how to deconstruct all that may take time, because it may have been deeply reinforced by years or decades or lifetimes of affirmation of some things and denial of other things. So as a isolating habit begins by one single impression, to deconstruct that we may need gradual single impressions that, and again, a very gradual reshifting of the habit to include, instead of isolating habits, connecting habits in a gradual way and in a gradual way and in a gradual way. Paramdrishanivarte, till the higher taste proves itself evidently above the isolating ones, right? Yeah. But again, that's why many times we need personalized assistance, right? So we are not just by ourselves testing those formulas and maybe trying to do more than what we can or less than what we can, and so on and so forth, right? Okay. Let's we have a few more questions. Let's go for 5 minutes to the breakout rooms again to discuss together a little bit about what we just talked: addiction, isolating habits, and how to deal with them on a day-to-day basis. Started at home, hopefully, with full responsibility. See you back in a few minutes. Welcome back. Welcome back, and yes, not enough yet, right? Unsatiable. That's now, hunger is a good symptom of health. So we want to keep you hungry for more. Okay, so welcome back. Take a few moments to land back from the depth and breadth and beautiful thickness of what you were going through in the breakout rooms together. We are back in the wider room now, and we invite Ananga Manjari in Germany to bring her offering to us today. Welcome.
Hare Krishna Maharaj and everyone else. I'm very happy and thankful for opportunity. My question is today, sometimes we are going through the difficult situations in life, something like maybe dark night of the soul or whatever. And in some situations, we have experience, at least I have experience, and I also heard also from others, that something like silence of God, like in the moments where one actually want to connect and is also in need to connect, but there is something like, silent. So I'm wondering if you can say something about if something like this is at all existing, or is this just our not ability to be enough conscious to understand the situations? Yeah.
It's just your problem, Ananga Manjari. I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody has ever gone through any of that, so figure that out. Good luck. Just to create some contrast, I started with that answer, right? Sometimes we need to start showing what not to say. And somehow saying that, unfortunately, because sometimes that be the official answer when we bring something to that. So just to laugh about the tragedy, but of course, beyond that, bad dark humor of mine, welcome to the club. You're not alone. That's part of the journey. It happens not only once in a lifetime. And it's a very liminal. That's the word, liminal space. I remember there's a whole chapter in radical personalism about sacred unknowing and paradox and doubt, and we talked about the dark night of the soul and how unsettling that is, because again, it kind of upsets our certainties about everything. But we need that. And I know that the more I say that, the more upset you may be at me, all of you, right? Because we already may be upset and unsettled, and then on top of that, we are told that that's something necessary. It can be a little bit, troubling. But no, again, I'm not to say that from a place, you need that, so go through that, and that's it. No, not from that place, but from a place of acceptance and understanding of, okay, God is silent. And then again, is God silent? Or is he, she, them talking in a language, in a new level of Chinese, continuing with the previous analogy, right? Am I being invited to a new depth of relationship? And I'm still, maybe, I'm not saying this is for sure, but it happens a lot. Maybe I am insisting on an outdated pattern of relationship, and I cannot find that person there anymore. No, like we can see that in this life with us, between us humans. No, some other person maybe in another place than when we met him or her before. And if we try to relate to that person for who that person was 3 decades ago, we will find that person is not there. And we will say, why you are silent, right? We can feel it. But it's not that the person disappeared or is not willing to talk or is not willing to relate. It's just, I'm somewhere else because I'm someone else. And one chooses to try to be somewhere else and someone else to keep the pace to the relationship or not. So that's part of it. I'm not saying that it's all up to us. I don't want to sound that also like, again, not this, I'm not saying this for us to feel guilty, like, okay, it's all up to me. Krishna is talking and I'm not listening. I'm the one failing. I'm not saying it that way. I'm just presenting a pattern, not hopefully natural and normalizing pattern. As I speak in evolution and divine love, Krishna is always becoming more of who he is. So we all, if we want to keep the pace with such a person, we are invited to become more of who we are as well. Not in an exhausting speed that we can no longer follow and we feel I'm out of this run, so to say, because it's too much, but to keep some pace. At the same time, I wouldn't deny that God likes to play hide and seek, right? That's how it's described many times in different traditions. But it's play, right? It's not hide and hide. It's hide and seek and find. It's not hide, seek, and still hide and seek and hide, and you never find it anyways. Oh, it's not fun. You abandon the play after 2 minutes. So hide and seek. But and it's fun. I mean, we have all, you know what's hide and seek. You've all played that when you were children. It was not like, let's play hide and seek. Oh no, I don't want you to disappear. I don't want you to hide. There is a place for excitement in the hiding. And I mean, we know the person is hiding, but we know the person is not so far from us. We know the person can be found. We know that, okay, let's play hide and seek, and I took a plane and I go to the Antarctica. No, it's game is over, right? It's like, it's boring. It's not fun. I have to be hiding close enough. So there is a probability of me finding you, but I have to seek you, right? If not, I won't find you. But I know I have this. I'm uncertain about what you are, but I'm certain that you are close enough to be found. But then I should be certain that I need to do my part. Seek. Atatu Brahma Jignasa. No? That's how the Vedanta Sutra starts. No? Atatu Brahma Jignasa. Now is the time to inquire into Brahman. It's another way of saying now is the time to seek, to enter into hide and seek with Brahman. So, yeah, in his playfulness, Krishna loves to play hide and seek. But again, play hide and seek is not the same thing. He loves to hide and never reappear again. So we have to know how to navigate that, right? Because if I'm, I don't know, if I'm loving you and I'm searching for you and you hide from me forever, that's like cruelty, basically. That's a very strange idea of God if we develop that. But because I know you are looking for me and you love me, and I hide only enough, far enough, long enough for you to do the necessary seek you need to do to grow in that seek. So when you discover me again, you will be transformed by this seeking itself, and you will be finding me anew. So that's the hide and seek that Krishna plays. That's the Rasa Lila, right? In the Bhagavatam, Rasa Lila, Krishna is disappearing from the gopis, disappearing, hide and seek, and the gopis are thrown into this churning ocean of separation, right? A new level of longing, as Sri Krishna was commenting, longing. So, and they go through all this process, right? They start, again, going back to the gopis, but as something we can relate to. Krishna disappears, they start to run in the forest of Vrindavan to talk to the vines and to the plants and to the animals and to everyone and everything, inquiring for the object of their affection. Then they cannot find him, still he's hiding, but he's nearby, he's not far. Then they find Radha, they join her and sing Gopi-gītā, and Krishna is hiding behind a tamal tree, right there. He's hiding close enough as to witness what's going on, and eventually he reappears. They were not able to find him literally. It's not like, oh, we got you, Krishna, you were behind that tamal tree, here you are. They were not able to do that. So they started to join together in sacred song and increase their longing, and Krishna had to reappear. He couldn't resist, and when he reappeared, Shaksh Manmata Manmataha, says the Bhagavatam. He appeared in a level of enchantment that nobody has ever seen him before like that. So one could say Krishna is appearing more beautiful because he witnessed the sincere seeking of his devotees, and then that increased his beauty, because that sincere seeking is the love of the devotees seeking for him. But also we can say Krishna appeared more beautiful because the heart of the gopis became refined by that whole searching, seeking process in separation of him. So when Krishna reappeared, their hearts were in another place, so they could find him more beautiful than ever. But of course, that chapter of separation, union, separation, can feel a little bit unsettling. And that's the advice of the Bhagavatam and the gopis. What do the gopis do in separation? Dying in separation, they got together and they engaged in Sankirtan. Sadhu Sangha, Nama Kirtan. They got together and celebrated together and gave support to each other. Like the Napoleon chair, like Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, that's Sadhu Sangha. That's how you can bear the separation during the hide and seek game. Still, you're playing the hide and seek. It may look like a little tragic, dying in separation, but that's how to navigate it. With this certainty, for us, again, we are not the gopis, that Krishna is never far. Again, like in the Sufi mystics will say, God is closer than your, how to say in English, jugular vein? Jugular vein. Okay, so that's how, or closer than your own breath. Or again, in the Upanishad, he says, I'm closer than the closest. So sometimes he takes that distance again for a purpose, not out of cruelty, not as a final statement, you will never see me again, but just to create the necessary distance for introspection to come into the picture, right? Sometimes we need to take distance from something to see it for what it is. And that's what we call sometimes detachment. It's not indifference, it's not rejection, it's just zooming out to gain proper perspective. So we could say the similar way in this case. If we feel God has taken a distance from me, which is not the case, but we feel that's the case, is to create a certain perspective for us to think about certain things in a new way from that place. If we feel emptiness, if we feel loneliness, if we feel silence, okay, let's make friends with silence. You say, okay, God is silent. And Krishna says in the Gita, of all secrets things, I'm silenced. Right? So God is silent. Okay. Allow him to be silent and to speak through you in that moment when you feel him silent. He's silence. So when he's speaking clearly to you, that's him. When there is silence, that's him. Probably revealing something that requires a special pain of attention to listen what's being said in silence, through silence. Silence doesn't mean nothing is being said. It just means you have to pay very special attention to listen what's being said through silence. What's being said through silence? Through absence. Not only through union, through the direct, overt, clear contact, through absence, through distance, through separation, through silence. So much is going on there. It's part of the necessary dynamics of life. So, first of all, we have to accept that. No, we shouldn't resist that moment, that chapter. We shouldn't be against that. We shouldn't be in denial of that, because that will be the main trouble, to be a denialist. So radical acceptance, what's taking place. And yeah, sitting, taking seat in the fire with what absence and silence has to tell me, but with this certainty. There may be hide and seek, but he's never far enough, so to say. He's always close enough, and the hide and seek is an invitation for me to engage in the search. As Krishna is engaged in a search, like Srila Srinath will say, love in search for the lost servant, but we also are invited to do part of the search. No? So moments like these are necessary chapters to maybe recalibrate what I may need to change, what I may need to refine, what I may need to discard as outdated for me to rediscover, the divine in new light. And again, I can continue talking, but at the end of the days, entering into that uncomfortable space and courageously asking me why this is uncomfortable. No? What's this what's settling in me here, and what may need to be unsettled, and allowing the unsettling. And the unsettling is a form of unfolding. Something needs to be seen. Something needs to be acknowledged. Something needs to come to the surface. And it may be painful, but that's how we grow. Seeing some things that we were not willing to see, learning to see them with compassion, with understanding, release them if it's required, and daring to imagine a deeper version of ourselves and even a deeper version of Krishna. And yeah, I'm dying to certain ideas of God that we may have that no longer work. Many times that's mostly the absence and the silence. Not necessarily that Krishna has totally disappeared, but he's just waiting for us and for who he actually is. And will love us with God, not with our ideas about God. sometimes in order to fall in love with God, we need to die to our ideas about God. Because God is not about our ideas about God. Our ideas are just our ideas. All respect to our ideas, but you cannot reduce the infinite absolute to my ideas about it. So it's an ongoing, challenging journey, of course. But there is a price to pay for love. That's as simple as I can say it. There's a price to pay for everything, and there's a price to pay for love. But it's all part of the journey, so it's not a symptom that you are doing something wrong. That's what I will say. That's very important to normalize, to make it part of the journey, not to torture yourself thinking what I'm doing wrong. Probably you're not doing anything wrong. Probably you're doing things right, and because of that, you're brought to this particular point where you may need to release some things. But they were not even wrong. It's just they're outdated. You have outgrown that particular model, and you are ready to release that old skin, which is part of progress. It's not a symptom that something was wrong. It's actually a symptom that something was right? That growth is happening. So yeah, whatever, I mean, I'm saying different ideas from different perspectives, trusting that some of that may resonate, something of that. But yeah, whatever we do, let's do it from a place how we embrace these situations, which will come sooner or later to all of us. Let's embrace them with hope, realistic hope, not like a symptom of everything is going to end. Also not thinking this will be like this forever. But that doesn't mean that I don't need to go through this now. It means that I need to go through this now. And what this, if we want to call it dark night of the soul, okay, what this is trying to teach me, and how much I'm in a teachable position, right? How does it feel, Anangamanjari?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for so many wonderful examples, and especially this one, which you said is very talking to me. Like you said, we have to take a distance to see something. Like maybe some artist who is painting also have to take distance to see bigger picture. And I remember also sometimes having sometimes having seva, addressing deities, and many times I have to go on the distance to see better picture. So yeah, I think this is necessary to to have a new vision maybe of everything. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. And also, yeah, something that came to my mind was, and it's all connected to what we were saying, right? But you can look for this section on divine ignorance and radical personalism, maybe will help on the dark night of the soul. But but mostly the idea that many times what we perceive as God, again, in our perception, God getting farther away, sometimes it's the other way around. It's like he's getting so close that I no longer see him. In other words, many of us sometimes keep God at a safe distance. Because still we talk about Krishna, the sweet absolute, but many of us still want our safe distance from God. We don't want Krishna to mess up too much with our life, right? When he starts to participate too much, we close the curtain and go back to your altar and stay quiet there. So, but he wants proximity, right? He wants intimacy, and so much intimacy that we cannot even imagine. So if someone wants too much intimacy, they may get so close to you, but we may be accustomed to seeing that person at a certain safe distance. So when that person gets closer, we lost sight of that person because now they are closer and closer. And we may say, oh, God disappeared from my life. No, he's getting closer. but we are not accustomed to conceive how much that closer God is willing to get. And we may be afraid of that intimacy. So we want to keep everyone, God included, at a safe distance. So, but I will say it's the other way around. Again, it's not that God is escaping from us, taking a distance, but probably he's trying to insist on intimacy. And we may be resisting rather than insisting intimacy. And that may create some experience of, oh, God is silent. No, he's not silent. He wants to get closer, but we may not be willing to speak in that language. So I want him to continue speaking to me from the language that he speaks as a distant person. He wants to get closer, and I no longer understand that new language, so it feels absence or silence. And again, not to feel bad about ourselves, just to understand the dynamics of how the relationship operates from the side of the Sweet Absolute. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nangamanjari, for bringing vulnerably your journey with us. And it's not only your journey again, it's our journey. All of us navigate sooner or later these turbulent waters, but they are meant to create some turbulent waters, some exciting surfing, not to drown in them. So yeah, thank you. We can go a few minutes more to the breakout rooms to discuss this important topic together, and then we will go back. I think we have only one more question or sharing remaining from Charlie. If there's anything else, we'll see. But now we'll go to the breakout rooms and see you back in a few moments. There you are. Welcome back to one of you. Hoping you had a safe journey together. And let's continue. We have Charlie who raised his hand, and I also saw that Arpita sent a written question, so probably we'll spend the remaining of our time addressing those two offerings. So we invite Charlie to unmute himself. Welcome.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. I wanted to ask a question, maybe on behalf of my sister. We're kind of feeling a bit parallel in our journeys right now, and she's given up a lot and healed a lot in the last year. And I think she's, I mean, by her description, beginning to taste this sweetness, which is the sweet absolute. But you know, as we talked about addictions, even like maybe more gross things like nicotine, she's even giving these things up. But now it seems like there's an invitation to release things pertaining to this corporeal identity. And that comes with fear. It comes with excitement as well. Our future is bright. So how do we maybe hold both of these, fear and excitement, towards becoming like fully loving, right? This anticipation, without becoming overwhelmed by either. And maybe a more concise question would be, what mindset might be required to handle the anticipation of becoming God conscious?
Thank you. Well, I assume that your sister is involved in the question and you're asking it on her behalf, but he knows that you're asking the question.
She
Or
doesn't.
it's just like a secret conspiracy we are performing here.
Complete conspiracy.
Okay, which will go on public in my YouTube channel, by the way. So
Yeah.
so far for secret conspiracy. Okay. As long as she's okay with that, I hope she doesn't take it personal. I don't know her, but all my best. And again, as I was talking before, sometimes I have to answer questions related to situations I don't know, or to people in this case that I know is the sister of Charlie, but still I don't know who Charlie's sister is in detail. So I can just say something in general, but bearing in mind that context is everything, so to say, and every case is unique in their unfolding and their process, and trying to humble my own answer by reminding myself I'm not equipped with all the details of every particular case, right? So I can say as much. But it's, I mean, in one sense, it's a very thoughtful question and very interesting one, of course, because again, you are anticipating, there's excitement about what's to come, and there may be a fear about what's to release, and in order so what's to come comes. And I will say, of course, probably that kind of feels special in the beginning of the journey, at least as far as we can speak about the beginning in a lifetime, let's say. But I will say that those things should be ongoing, right? It's not like, okay, that only happens when you first discover it in a spiritual tradition and then it just becomes stagnant and there's no more anticipation and fear and excitement. I mean, there's an ongoing release of something that may create its corresponding fear and an ongoing excitement about what's to come. So in different ways, of course, with different flavors in different stages, but I will say there's a lot of that, more and more and more and more. So starting from the beginning. So how to deal with that, or what's the mindset? Again, I cannot give a universal diagnosis. I can just share a few words and hopefully they apply to some degree or other. I think in part that the fact that she or you, she through your question, and I trust you're reading your sister properly, of course, but the fact that there is an acknowledgement that there are these two elements, there is anticipation and excitement at the glimpse, at the trailer of what we are starting to taste, but also there is some unsettling about releasing certain, I don't know, layers of identification. The fact that we can see these two things happening in itself is a proper mindset, so to say, right? It's not like a either or mindset, right? It's not just like I only have to be excited all the time about what's to come, and there cannot be place for fear or unsettling. It has to be only happiness and joy and bliss and ecstasy and high emotional peak, harmony, junkie, positive, pink color, whatever. Sometimes people think of spiritual life like that, right? Like you're just on a dopamine wave that never ends. And no, you may hit that wave at some type of your surfing, but also there are low tides and high tides in the navigation, and fear may be one of those, or other landscapes like the ones we were discussing with Ananga Manjari before, or with any of you at so many times. So for me, just that's a good mindset, just to, even in the first glimpse we may have to glimpse, oh, it's not only about exciting things happening. Yes, of course, not, but there's also, there may be fear in connection, and the fear is in connection to what's exciting, right? So that's the paradox there, because there's something exciting, promising, deep, incredible, but I know that there's a price for that, and there has to be a release in that, and I'm afraid of that. So it's paradox, right? I'm afraid of something that excites me. At the end of the day, the two are connected. So just framing the question, accepting that paradox, it's in itself the right mindset, right? It's not like an exclusivistic mindset. Like, how can I only be excited all the time in the spiritual life? Or the opposite, I'm fearful all the time. My spiritual sojourn is an anxiety trip nonstop. It's like, oh, that was not the idea. I'm fearful at every single step. That's not the idea. But also not to the extreme that fear disappears altogether. No, there is place for that as a symptom. So, I mean, I'm staying in that with this because I think that's kind of the best mindset that you need to have, basically, like an honest assessment, acknowledgement, accepting these two things are there, I'm seeing them, I'm starting to feel them, and somehow they happen to be related to one another. They are paradoxical, but they are there, and I don't want to do the half-hand logic and just eliminate one, and I end up eliminating the two of them, right? Because I want only excitement, so I don't want to have fear of any sort. So let's make this disappear, and maybe I make everything disappear. So it's not that we want fear, but again, we can understand fear. It's not so much about stop having fear, but it's more about accept when it comes and try to understand from where it comes. And when you understand from where it comes, in one sense, fear becomes like a confirmation of the wonderful journey you're in. Because, oh, I realize that I'm afraid to let go of this particular way of seeing myself, because now I'm getting closer to this new prospect that shows who I really am in all my brightest potential. And that's beautiful and charming, but that has a price. So again, you follow my point. So when you ascertain your fear, indirectly that fear is pointing to the beauty that the fear is contrast, creating the construct in relation to. So at the end of the day, the fear is not something entirely bad. It can be, how to say, approached as a symptom of something very positive happening, right? I'm afraid to let go of my whatever, this thinking pattern. I mean, we may be even afraid of yeah, so many things. Everything can be a cause of fear if we are toxically attached to that, right? So I may see myself as an absolutely useless, unworthy person, which is not glorious, but that may be my established identity. And then I get in touch with the message of unconditional love that threatens that identity. Thank God. But we feel fear because so far that was our prime identity. And now it feels that identity is cracking. So I feel some fear, but at the same time, I'm feeling enough light entering in through the crack to trust, right? To trust that what is entering through the crack is way deeper and powerful than the fear I'm feeling for what's being cracked, right? So then I can move forward. Still, there is some fear. No wonder, again, at the very conclusion of the Bhagavad-gītā, Krishna is telling Arjuna, offer yourself to me, do not fear. Why he says that? Because he knows we fear. So when he says do not fear, it's not so much that he's imposing himself, forbidding us to fear anymore. It's more like a way of normalizing, I know you are fearful. I know there is a price for the step I'm inviting you to take. So normalizing the fear, but also trying to put, if you do that, you will have nothing to fear. That's basically the spirit. It's not so much do not fear. You cannot fear. You are forbidden to fear. It's more like seeing the proper light. I know you're fearing. We accept that. It's okay. But you ultimately, if you see what's coming, there's nothing to fear. Though we may still be fearing. We may take the step still with some hesitancy, but eventually we develop a higher realization and we realize, oh, I no longer need to fear for that. Eventually we will be fearful about something more subtle. And that's how we make progress. One way of measuring progress, you could say, is you have fear for things that are more and more refined, for a more and more refined release of things that create a fear, because fear is tied to the fear is kind of a defense mechanism. Many times which we try to defend something that we have taken for real for some time. So when that thing stops showing for what we thought it was, there is fear, because what remains, right? So that's why we need enough certainty. Speaking about uncertainty, also we need enough certainty, so when everything else is crumbling, this light that is entering, is keeping the excitement, the anticipation, the longing, the hope, even if some fear is there. So again, don't try to over-idealize your spiritual journey thinking it has to be only excitement. It cannot be fear. No, many times it's a mixture of everything. But the important thing is to put things in the proper place in priority, and know, even if there is fear. I mean, I remember, just to give an example, but when I was going back to bicycle, right? When I learned to ride bicycle and you are told, okay, seat yourself in the bicycle, probably you're fearful because you don't know how to ride a bicycle, and you will are fearful of ending up on the floor, and probably you will. So it's not an like unbased fear. It's a very realistic fear. But that's only one part of the journey. From the bigger picture, you end up learning to ride bicycle. And when you know how to ride bicycle, you're not fearful about falling from your bike anymore. That fear totally disappeared. There are other fears, but not that one. But at that point, you are fearful, and still you ride the bicycle. And by riding the bicycle with fear, and falling, and getting up again, and still with fear, you learn eventually to ride the bicycle. It's not that you only learn to ride a bicycle when you have no fear to begin with. That doesn't happen that way. But not with so much fear that you don't even dare to ride a bicycle. Right? So that, yeah, going back to the main point, right? Normalizing there is fear, but there's excitement. And it's not a contradiction necessarily. It's not that there must be one wrong and one right. No, both are coexisting paradoxically. And that's part of the journey. So I'm happy that, hopefully she's able to see those things right from the beginning, because they will continue right till the very end, coexisting in different ways. So just to normalize all that. That's what came today, Charlie. I don't know. You know your sister way better than I. I just been introduced to her a few minutes ago, so you let me know if that may help.
Yeah. Yeah, it was that was incredible. I don't think I can it's a lot to think on, and especially more and more towards the end where you mentioned progress as the release process being more and more refined. It's that kind of hit the nail on the head. And basically with all of the nectar, I think I received like carry on as you are, which is what she's doing basically. So that will just continue on then.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
So much to look forward to.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Thank you.
yeah. No, thank you. And again, I hope, again, this goes beyond your sister for sure. It's for all of us, trying to not wait for fear to disappear in order to be excited. And not diminish our excitement because some fear is popping up there, right? Not over idealizing something as purely existing exclusively without the presence of anything else. That will not happen.
Yeah.
So
I think I think
and even in the highest realms, and just to take it up for a moment, not to make a comparison, but Rupa Goswami says there are these eternal emotions in connection to Krishna and Golok Vrindavan, and one of the 7 secondary rasas is Bhayanaka rasa, which means fear. Again, it's another type of fear, but it's a fear. Yashoda is fearful almost all day in relation to Krishna. It's Yashoda in relationship to Krishna, but I'm saying fear has an eternal place there. Of course, the fear that fuels her love, right? She's like, oh, Krishna's in the forest now. Maybe he's walking some pebbles, and maybe he's playing too hard with his friends, and they're wrestling him too hard on the ground. And at night, I hope he sleeps nice because not in a traumatized way that we may think of, in a way that increases her love. But fear is fuel for love. So somehow we are invited to navigate fear here in a similar way, as much as it's connecting to our particular stage. How can fear can become fuel for love? No? As I was saying before, how fear can at least become an indicator that is pointing to something that helps me to connect deeper with love. And in that sense, fear has become rightfully so fuel for love, right? Not just end with the fear and become frozen and paralyzed, and that's the end of the story. But try to see, where is fear pointing to? How is fear pointing to love? It's a type of creative imagination exercise, but it's not imagination at the end of the day. In one sense, it's very real. So yeah. It's a good exercise. What I'm afraid of, okay, and then comes an answer to that. But that's probably not the final answer. That's just scratching the surface. What I'm afraid of, and what's behind that. What's the question behind that answer, and what's the question behind it? Till we reach back to love, till we somehow find the connection with the center, right? It's an important inner discipline, hopefully, to deal with our inner landscape, to deal with all the things we go through and we experience. Not to just get paralyzed or frozen with what we're experiencing, not to judge ourselves cruelly, not to put ourselves as a victim and see universal conspiracy all around, but try to inquire in an honest way and finding deeper and deeper and deeper answers till we somehow it all point back to what causes us hope and excitement and inspiration and connection. Because the center is everywhere. Sri Cedar Marsh will say, center is everywhere, their circumference is nowhere. Center is everywhere. So everything can be tied back to the center. We may not have that capacity fully, we may need some help and guidance, but we have to also try to exercise our imagination muscles to try to tie back all to the center somehow or other. Thank you, Charlie, and thank you to your sister. Looking forward to crossing paths sometime, and all the best on her own journey as well. And I'll skip this breakout room, and we'll go to one last question that was sent in a written form by Arpita. So I have it here. I will read it, and I will say a few words. And then we will conclude with one final breakthrough room. Which somehow is a question that is inviting us to wrap up with the different themes we have been presenting today so far. It says, how can we understand or develop faith that the knowledge in the Bhagavad-gītā is true, and that what Vedas realized through meditation is genuine, which includes the Vedas? Also, how can we develop conviction that Krishna is real? So this is the question, or the questions inside the question, which basically boils down to how can we prove, if you will, or understand or feel or experience that all this is real, right? Bhagavad-gītā, Bhagavan, Vyasadeva, Samadhi, Bhagavatam, Vedas, scripture, Krishna. Is Krishna real? Is he a mental construct? Is he a product of my wildest imagination? And of course, in short, the answer is, here we are not trying to convince ourselves, right, that something is real. But the whole thing is to have an experience of that is real enough for it to become undeniable. And that's what the Vedas, if you're asking, for example, how do you know the Bhagavad-gītā is true? Well, Bhagavad-gītā is not taken for granted that you're assuming it's true, but it's inviting you to test it for yourself, right? 9th chapter, verse number 2, Krishna is saying, Pratyaksha Bhagamam Dharmyam. No? The Bhagavad-gītā is a book all about dharma. Dharma culminating in prema dharma. No? The divine love function of the soul, the ultimate potential of the soul in divine love. And he says this dharma, Pratyaksha Bhagamam, it's understood by personal experience, direct experience. We are not here trying to convince you about something. We are not here to develop beliefs about the dogma. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean much, at least. So we need to have an experience. And for that, we need to try. Of course, in the beginning, we may say, but how do I know if it's true or not? I won't dare to try it if I don't know in advance that that's true. But that's not how it works, right? How do I know if I don't know, I will find perfect love in every and any relationship. If I do not know that in advance, I won't try to relate to anyone. I don't think that's the healthiest formula, right? How do I know if I won't fall in the bicycle if I try to learn? No, you will fall. But that doesn't mean you won't ride and you will learn. So in the same way, scripture all over, it's trying to encourage us, have your own experience. How do I know Vyasa meditation is genuine? Well, you have to enter your own meditation. Vyasa is not expecting you to believe him blindly. He's entering to meditation, conveying the result of his samadhi, and then that's an open door for you to, if you want, to enter into it and live your own experience. Again, all these messages in the scriptures, in one sense, are fingers pointing to the moon. And I'm not saying this to relativize revelation. I'm just saying, in one sense, all this revelation, even, again, if we take them as we do, as Gaudiya Vaishnava, this is sacred revelation, the lived experience of these seers, still they are pointing to the moon of our own experience. Until and unless we have our own experience, it's only half-truth, so to say. A half-truth can be more dangerous than a lie, right? So we don't want to just over-rely on Vyasadev's own samadhi without me having mine, right? It's not enough to say Vyasadev ki jai, Vyasadev samadhi ki jai, and I'm not doing what I need to do to enter my own samadhi. You follow my point? It's not enough to say Bhagavad-gītā ki jai, but I'm not walking the talk of Bhagavad-gītā myself. So all this encouragement and knowledge and descriptions and revelations are there as a testimony of other people's experience. Again, even if we are a little doubtful, a little even cynic, there is enough abundance of these examples throughout the world, throughout history. It's not just an isolated one guy called Veda Vyas who enters into meditation and nobody else knows what meditation, spiritual practice, trance, God, nobody else but one Vyasadeva is talking about that. That's not the case. There are thousands and millions of people throughout history and cross-culturally, cross-religiously, not only one particular tradition, bringing many abundant, many very similar and common symptoms of their experience in trance, if you want to use that word. So we have a lot of consensus, enough consensus to make a solid case, even if I have zero experience, to at least open myself to probably there is some truth here. I mean, probably, again, let's speak just purely from statistics. Okay, there are many people giving these reports, not only mystics and saints, but poets and people having even near-death experience, different types of things. But speaking about realities beyond my immediate empirical grasp, at least I should, if I'm really open, if I don't want to take anything for certain, I cannot also deny anything for certain. So I have to be open. And then if I get close enough to those people who are living these truths, if I'm really open, I probably will have my own experience. As I like to say, sometimes someone would say it may be relatively easy to deny the existence of God, but it's not easy to deny the existence of love of God. When that appears in the heart of people who lead a life, extraordinary lives of love of God, of dedication, of exhibiting incredible values and walking their talk with such consistency, you cannot ask what's behind that. If that person is living their life in such a moving way, what's moving them? Because their life is moving me. So what's moving them? So you become curious again, and you get close enough to that person. You may not be having the experience that person is having, but we may have an experience of being close to the experience of the other person. And that unto itself may be enough of an experience for the day for us. And eventually we may be more and more open to gain deeper confidence. Again, when we speak about faith or shraddha, it's a confidence that comes from undeniable experience. It's not just blind belief, naive hope based on nothing, but I have some experience, and that creates some faith. And then that faith opens me more, and then I have a bigger experience, and then I have a bigger faith, and then that opens me for more, and so on and so forth. Till Shraddha becomes Nishta, firm faith, and Nishta continues to bloom into all the other levels of deepening of faith. All the stages of the journey are basically deepenings of faith. So it's not about trying to convince anyone, convince myself, convert by force, impose dogma, impose doctrine. That's not faith. That's not proof of anything. As Sanatana Goswami will say, that the ultimate praman and the ultimate epistemological source, the ultimate way of knowing things is pratyaksha, personal experience, direct experience. Being willing to expose ourselves to certain practice, to certain people, to certain environment, places, situation, whatever, open enough for us to be impacted by them, and then seeing what we do with that. And again, there are many people who have lived and continue to live, not only old people, because sometimes there is this type of myth in religion, in music, like sometimes there is this saying in music, the great composers are the dead ones, right? Like for you to be a great composer, you have to be dead, no? Because if you are still alive, you generally you're not taken so seriously. Sometimes people think the same with religious people, right? Saintly people are those from the past. Now, that's not the same. But no, if we are open to inquire and expose ourselves to that, we'll be finding people who are living their life, in this case, guided on the Bhagavad-gītā and the Bhagavatam, Vyasadev's meditation, Krishna. They're speaking about the things, and they're leading a life that is, in my opinion, I'm not saying all of them, but many of them, or even if there are not many of them, let's put it that way, I'm not saying that, but hypothetically, even if it's a few of them, even if it's one of them, that should be enough. I'm not saying there's only one of them, but just taking to that extreme. If the entire planet Earth wouldn't be doing any of that, but just one person is following all this in a fully genuine, authentic way, that I see that, I witness that, and it's moving to me, even if the entire rest of the world goes in the other direction, I don't care. That should be enough. It's not about quantity, because again, if we fall into the quantity thing, generally quantity, you won't find the mystics being the mainstream quantity on earth. There will be always a minority. But who cares about numbers? Again, it's about quality. That's the price to pay, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, right? Krishna-bhakti rasa bhavitam tikriyatam yadi kutopi labhyate tatra laulemapye kalam mulyam janma koti sukritarna labhyate. Whatever you find a heart possessed by this passionate mood of deep love, go and get it. No matter where it comes, no matter, longing is the price. And it may be one among millions. And Krishna says that in the Gita, right? 7:3. Among many, a few do that. Among many of those few, a fewer. Not to say to be exclusivistic, just to be realistic about not everyone at the same moment, at the same time is interested in this. But that shouldn't discourage us. Again, we shouldn't wait for this to be a mainstream religion on earth, and only then I have enough faith to pursue the path, when everyone else is doing that. probably will never happen. So we better gain the best possible reasons to do this, right? And that means finding someone, and that's why SATSANG is so important for us, finding those like-hearted souls, like-minded souls that vibrate in that frequency that melt our heart. And that we cannot deny. It becomes undeniable. It's too real to deny. At the same time, it's too deep to comprehend. So it keeps us in a very humbling place. No, it's undeniable what I'm feeling, what I'm receiving, but it's too vast to comprehend. So I cannot claim that I got it. I cannot claim that I have colonized it, but I cannot deny it. That's the sweet spot. So I hope that helps. And I see Arpita saying that helps. So thank you. Thank you for the question. And again, just a few words, but I'll try to emphasize this point of, whatever it takes, we need to have that personal experience. Which doesn't mean, again, everything is figured out. But as Srila Maharaj will say, even if you touch one point of the infinite, that point is still infinite. So even if you can connect with a genuine expression of the truth, that should be enough not only for the day, but for a lifetime. Not to be complacent either, but just that will create the momentum, as we will say always when scriptures say just 1 nanosecond of sadhusanga gives all perfection. Means that nanosecond was so true or real that creates a momentum that will carry you for eternity if you remain open to that. Even if there are cloudy days that you are not feeling that, but that was so true, so real, no amount of other stuff can deny that, can cancel that undeniable moment. So that will carry us, and in that sense there is no fear, nothing to lose. So okay, we'll go to one final. Okay, Arpita is asking, does chanting help as a beginner? Yes, chanting helps as a beginner, as a non-beginner, always, but chanting, that's another conversation. Chanting should be done properly, and chanting is not limited to chanting. Chanting is a beautiful thing, and we are invited to do it from a place of affection, right? Sometimes we hear attention, but attention plus affection, attention, presence, affectionate presence, bearing witness to what's descending through the names, which are not different from our beloveds, and then hopefully being able to extend that to how we relate to everything and everyone else. Because chanting at the end of the day is a lifestyle. It's developing my relationship with God, which entails developing my relationship with everything that is connected to God, which is everything. And that is chanting. And yeah, chanting helps, therefore. We'll go to the final breakout room today for a few more minutes. I will give you a few extra minutes for those who are ready to complain that it was too short today. And we'll see you back for our final goodbye of the day. Welcome back. I gave you a few more minutes. I know it's still not enough, but it's all a trailer of eternity, right? So we're already being gifted with the taste of that. So thank you for being part of that. Without each of you, it wouldn't be as possible as it was today. So may you have a blessed closing of the week. Thank you so much for your presence, deep gratitude for your inquiries, your opening, your showing up, and looking forward to continue traveling on the adventure together. See you next weekend for another episode of SATSANG. Q&A, greetings from Gudrum, from one Gudrum to the other, from the island of one heart to the other. No man is an island. So thank you for reminding me, though I'm in an island, that I'm not an island myself. And see you very soon. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Praman Hari Hari Vancha Kalpataruvishcha. Sindhubhyev Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Antakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Hari Hari Bo.